Accused of sexual harassment and assault by Rodney Lil Rod Jones.
Ron, any comments? Any comments on the trial so far? The opening statements?
He's having his day.
He's having his day?
He's having his day. We trust the justice system.
Thank you, sir.
God is good.
The new allegations against Sean Diddy Combs, a music producer, is accusing hip-hop mogul of sexually assaulting him and forcing him to have sex with prostitutes.
The music mogul who built an empire, the celebrity everyone wanted to party with, but behind Diddy's glamorous facade, a terrifying truth was waiting to explode. This week, Lil Rod took the stand and broke down as he detailed shocking allegations of sexual assault against one of hip-hop's biggest icons. What he revealed in that courtroom has left the entire industry speechless.
Behind closed doors, but as those whispers start to grow and get louder, you potentially could see greater civil litigation. They're saying in this case they want to fight it. Potentially we see a jury trial out of here, but this is based on sex trafficking allegations as well as claims that are criminal in nature.
As in the lawsuit that he lived and traveled with Combs from September 2022 to November 2023, during which time he recorded hours of video and audio of Combs, his staff, and others engaged in serious illegal activity.
Reads a lot like what we saw in the R. Kelly case in the EDNY, where they're talking about this being a criminal enterprise that's all feeding towards this one individual's depravity of wanting drugs and sex and rock and roll and everything in between, that everyone seemed to know and go out and facilitate what Sean Diddy Combs wanted. Even in part of these allegations or these complaints, they call his chief of staff the Ghislaine Maxwell to P. Diddy's Jeffrey Epstein, saying that this was a total sexual enterprise to feed into his desires.
To raise $50,000
right
to sue Puffy
right
for payment for music he produced.
Right.
That I guess he didn't have a contract for to get paid.
They say he's credited on the album, but I think he's not getting like royalties from it. I think he just like played the guitar and did some engineering work on it, but he feels like he should got royalties and he didn't. He just had his name on the album, so he was trying to raise the money so he could sue Puff for his royalties. That didn't go nowhere, and then he comes out with this, well, all this stuff happened during the recording process of this album.
You thought you knew Sean Diddy Combs, the billionaire music mogul with the perfect life, the parties, the glamour, the empire he built from nothing. For decades, he was untouchable, but one man's testimony just shattered that image forever. Rodney Jones Jr., known professionally as Lil Rod, was once part of Diddy's inner circle. As Diddy's former producer, he worked on 11 tracks for the Love album Off the Grid, spending over a year in close proximity to the hip-hop titan. That album even earned a Grammy nomination. But now Lil Rod has filed a massive $30 million lawsuit that contains allegations so serious they've sent the entire music industry into panic mode. The contrast couldn't be more stark. On one side, there's Diddy's carefully crafted public persona, the successful businessman, the loving father, the music visionary. On the other side are the court documents describing behavior so disturbing that many industry insiders won't even comment on it publicly. The man who once told us, "Can't nobody hold me down," now faces accusations that might bring his entire empire crashing to the ground. What makes this lawsuit different from typical celebrity drama is the specificity and the evidence Lil Rod claims to possess. He hasn't just made vague accusations, he says he has actual video footage documenting misconduct during his time working with Diddy. This isn't someone making claims from the outside looking in, this was someone in the studio, in the meetings, at the parties, witnessing everything firsthand. The lawsuit paints a picture of systematic behavior, not just isolated incidents. According to the court documents, what Lil Rod experienced and witnessed wasn't a one-time thing, but an ongoing pattern that allegedly continued throughout his professional relationship with Diddy. The claims suggest an established system that used power, money, and influence to silence victims. When news of the lawsuit first broke, the industry reaction was immediate. Artists who had previously clamored to work with Diddy suddenly went silent on social media. Brands began quietly distancing themselves. Former associates started whispering to journalists off the record. The shockwaves weren't just hitting Diddy, they were rattling the foundations of the entire music business. And while the full details of the allegations are too extensive to cover at once, at the core of the lawsuit are claims that will forever change how people view Diddy. The documents allege that Diddy used his immense power in the music industry to sexually assault multiple individuals, including Lil Rod himself. The lawsuit describes situations where career opportunities were dangled as bait, where refusal wasn't considered an option, where saying no could mean the end of everything you'd worked for. But as shocking as the initial lawsuit filing was, it pales in comparison to what happened when Lil Rod actually took the stand. His emotional testimony revealed even more disturbing details than anyone had anticipated. As he spoke through tears, describing specific incidents and naming names, the courtroom fell completely silent. This wasn't just about legal documents anymore. This was a human being describing trauma in real time, breaking down as he recounted experiences that he claims have left lasting damage. What Lil Rod shared in that courtroom goes far beyond typical celebrity scandal. His testimony revealed a side of the music industry that many have suspected but few have dared to expose.
Among the allegations is that Combs forced Jones to procure sex workers and pressure him to engage in unwelcome sex acts with them and others, and that Combs gave laced alcoholic beverages to people who attended parties at his home. The lawsuit includes what it says are screenshots from gatherings hosted at Combs' homes that included underage girls and sex workers, some who he said were provided drinks that had been laced with drugs at Combs' direction.
I'm looking down at the 73-page complaint that was filed yesterday. In terms of allegations of celebrities, we're talking about Cuba Gooding Jr. being shown through still photos of what the complainant says they have videos of groping him. There are allegations of P. Diddy touching the genitalia and anus of the complainant. And also, if you look to the complaint here, there's a few Easter eggs here where it says the rapper, redacted, on Mr. Combs' yacht consorting with underage girls and sex workers, and you look down to the redaction, it says, well, the person is a Philly rapper who dated Nicki Minaj. I think that may be Meek Mills. And also says an R&B singer redacted in Mr. Combs' Los Angeles home consorting with underage girls and sex workers. When you go down to the redaction, it says he's a Grammy Award-winning R&B singer who had trouble with law enforcement after assaulting a Bayesian billionaire. I don't know, who's a billionaire from Barbados that we know that dated someone? That sounds like Chris Brown. So there's a lot of big names here, both as Easter eggs and also just on the front pages of these allegations.
But he said they are all lies. This is a clear example of a desperate person taking desperate measures in hopes of a payday. There will be legal consequence for all defamatory statements made about the Combs family. The attorney for Combs said Jones' reckless name dropping about events that are pure fiction and simply did not happen is nothing more than a transparent attempt to garner headlines.
The disclaimer is he said that Puff didn't pay him for his beat and his publishing from that last album.
Yeah.
And prior to this, he had a GoFundMe trying to raise $50,000 to get a lawyer to sue Puff for his publishing.
Okay.
That didn't work, so he filed this.
The courtroom fell silent as Lil Rod took the stand. Every eye locked on the former producer as he adjusted the microphone. The room was packed with reporters, industry executives, and curious onlookers, all waiting to hear what this once trusted insider would say about one of music's biggest names. At first, Lil Rod spoke with surprising composure, his voice steady, almost rehearsed, as he described his initial relationship with Diddy, the job opportunity that seemed like a dream, the excitement of working on a Grammy-nominated album, the doors that were supposedly opening for his career. But about 20 minutes into his testimony, something changed. As Lil Rod began recounting a party at Diddy's Los Angeles mansion, his confidence started to crack. His hands trembled slightly as he described what started as a typical industry gathering. There were celebrities everywhere. People were networking. Everything seemed normal at first, he said. But then he described how drinks were passed around, how the mood of the party shifted, how certain guests were invited to stay later than others. Then came the moment that shocked the courtroom. Lil Rod's voice broke completely as he described waking up disoriented in one of the mansion's bedrooms, unable to recall how he got there. I couldn't move right, he stammered through tears. I knew something had been put in my drink, and then he came in. At this point, Lil Rod couldn't continue. His shoulders heaved as he tried to regain his composure. The judge immediately called for a 15-minute recess. Several jurors looked visibly disturbed. One elderly woman in the back row covered her mouth with her hand. A reporter in the front row stopped taking notes and just stared at the floor. When testimony resumed, Lil Rod described the alleged assault in terms so specific and graphic that several people left the courtroom. He claimed Diddy threatened to end his music career if he ever spoke about what happened. He told me nobody would believe me anyway, that he owned everyone in this industry. What really stunned observers was Lil Rod's claim that this wasn't an isolated incident. Between sobs, he testified about other young producers and artists who allegedly experienced similar treatment. We all knew, but nobody could say anything. Do you understand what happens when you go against someone like him? You're finished. Not just in music, your whole life. One of the most powerful moments came when Lil Rod described the psychological aftermath. I couldn't sleep, I couldn't work. I started drinking just to function. I'd jump whenever my phone rang. I thought my career was over if I didn't keep quiet. Several industry observers exchanged glances when Lil Rod mentioned specific dates and locations where he claimed other victims were present. Names weren't mentioned openly, but the implications hung heavy in the air. The testimony suggested a pattern spanning years, not isolated incidents. By the end of his testimony, Lil Rod had completely broken down, describing in excruciating detail not just the alleged assault itself, but the trauma that followed. The psychological scars, the nightmares, the fear that still follows him. His testimony didn't just describe a single incident of alleged sexual assault, it outlined what he claims was Diddy's entire system of control and exploitation. A system that allegedly used drugs, career opportunities, and threats to keep victims silent. A system that, according to Lil Rod's testimony, functioned smoothly for years while the industry looked the other way.
I think that could lead to what the attorneys are saying, is that anybody right now can come out with these accusations because, of what happened with Cassie. So everybody's trying to get a payday. Off of this whole thing. So, I did Lil Rod go to him and be like, hey, if you don't, pay me, then, I'm going to tell all of this other stuff that has been happening since, I was involved with this album. Like I have screenshots, bro. I have audio and video tape of these things that are happening. All you have to do is pay me, so what's the word? And he was like, nah. So it was like, all right.
The courtroom fell silent as Lil Rod took the stand. Every eye locked on the former producer as he adjusted the microphone. The room was packed with reporters, industry executives, and curious onlookers, all waiting to hear what this once trusted insider would say about one of music's biggest names. At first, Lil Rod spoke with surprising composure, his voice steady, almost rehearsed, as he described his initial relationship with Diddy. The job opportunity that seemed like a dream. The excitement of working on a Grammy-nominated album. The doors that were supposedly opening for his career. But about 20 minutes into his testimony, something changed. As Lil Rod began recounting a party at Diddy's Los Angeles mansion, his confidence started to crack. His hands trembled slightly as he described what started as a typical industry gathering. There were celebrities everywhere. People were networking. Everything seemed normal at first, he said. But then he described how drinks were passed around, how the mood of the party shifted, how certain guests were invited to stay later than others. Then came the moment that shocked the courtroom. Lil Rod's voice broke completely as he described waking up disoriented in one of the mansion's bedrooms, unable to recall how he got there. I couldn't move right, he stammered through tears. I knew something had been put in my drink, and then he came in. At this point, Lil Rod couldn't continue. His shoulders heaved as he tried to regain his composure. The judge immediately called for a 15-minute recess. Several jurors looked visibly disturbed. One elderly woman in the back row covered her mouth with her hand. A reporter in the front row stopped taking notes and just stared at the floor. When testimony resumed, Lil Rod described the alleged assault in terms so specific and graphic that several people left the courtroom. He claimed Diddy threatened to end his music career if he ever spoke about what happened. He told me nobody would believe me anyway, that he owned everyone in this industry. What really stunned observers was Lil Rod's claim that this wasn't an isolated incident. Between sobs, he testified about other young producers and artists who allegedly experienced similar treatment. We all knew, but nobody could say anything. Do you understand what happens when you go against someone like him? You're finished. Not just in music, your whole life. One of the most powerful moments came when Lil Rod described the psychological aftermath. I couldn't sleep, I couldn't work. I started drinking just to function. I'd jump whenever my phone rang. I thought my career was over if I didn't keep quiet. Several industry observers exchanged glances when Lil Rod mentioned specific dates and locations where he claimed other victims were present. Names weren't mentioned openly, but the implications hung heavy in the air. The testimony suggested a pattern spanning years, not isolated incidents. By the end of his testimony, Lil Rod had completely broken down, describing in excruciating detail not just the alleged assault itself, but the trauma that followed. The psychological scars, the nightmares, the fear that still follows him. His testimony didn't just describe a single incident of alleged sexual assault, it outlined what he claims was Diddy's entire system of control and exploitation. A system that allegedly used drugs, career opportunities, and threats to keep victims silent. A system that, according to Lil Rod's testimony, functioned smoothly for years while the industry looked the other way.
Yeah, Stephanie, I think the defense is going to look for people who are open to non-traditional lifestyles, who can receive evidence of what defense will sort of style as sex, drugs, and rock and roll, and not get put off and not rush to judgment. On the flip side, the prosecution is going to be looking for folks who are not going to be distracted by, the new shiny object over here, who are not going to get off course by any kind of circus the Diddy team may try to bring into this trial.
So, I mean, this has garnered much media attention. How does that factor in when it comes to selecting a jury? Because no doubt most people have heard of what is going on.
Totally. So it presents a significant problem. Here's the thing. The judge wants to find jurors who are fair and impartial and who have not already developed an opinion as to Diddy's guilt or innocence. Well, that's hard when every media outlet in the world has covered this case. They've likely already heard about it. And so what the judge is going to have to do is determine how much exposure the potential jurors have had to this Diddy saga and whether they can put that aside and simply base their verdict on what happens inside that courtroom and not everything that has gone on preceding that.
The lawsuit contains allegations so shocking that many industry insiders are refusing to even comment on them. The 73-page document filed against Diddy reads more like a horror movie script than legal paperwork. What's detailed inside has left even the most jaded music executives completely speechless. According to the lawsuit, Diddy didn't just cross lines. He created an entire environment where sexual assault wasn't just tolerated, it was actually encouraged and documented. The court papers describe a pattern of behavior that allegedly turned professional spaces into predatory hunting grounds. Recording studios weren't just for making music anymore. Hotel rooms weren't just for sleeping. Every space controlled by Diddy allegedly became a potential trap. One of the most disturbing claims involves what Diddy allegedly called freak-offs. These weren't just regular parties. The lawsuit describes them as organized events where guests were pressured to perform sexual acts while being secretly recorded. Lil Rod claims these recordings weren't just kept private, they were allegedly used later as blackmail material to ensure silence from those who participated, willingly or not. The method of control described in the lawsuit follows a disturbing pattern. First came the alcohol, top-shelf liquor flowing freely at every gathering. Then came the drugs, allegedly slipped into drinks without consent. Finally came the career opportunities, promises of features on songs, introductions to the right people, and implications that refusing would mean career suicide. This three-part system allegedly trapped numerous victims who felt they had no choice but to comply. For Lil Rod specifically, the lawsuit details multiple occasions where he claims Diddy touched him inappropriately. One incident allegedly happened during a video shoot when other people were present but not looking. Another allegedly occurred in a car when they were alone. The lawsuit describes how Lil Rod tried to laugh off these unwanted advances out of fear of angering someone with so much power over his career. Perhaps most shocking are the allegations about Diddy's business operations. The lawsuit claims that some of his legitimate businesses actually served as fronts for illegal activities, including what the court documents describe as sex trafficking. The papers allege that certain business meetings were actually setups for sexual exploitation, with victims lured in under professional pretenses. The most terrifying allegations involve threats of violence. According to the lawsuit, those who refused Diddy's advances or threatened to expose his behavior faced serious consequences. The documents claim Diddy made explicit threats about what would happen to anyone who spoke out. These weren't vague warnings. They were specific, detailed descriptions of violence that left victims fearing for their safety. The most disturbing incidents described include allegations of drugging drinks, physical coercion, recording of sexual acts without consent, and deploying armed security to intimidate victims. The lawsuit paints a picture of a man who allegedly used every resource at his disposal, money, fame, connections, and fear, to control those around him. What's particularly notable about these allegations is that they didn't come to light immediately after they supposedly occurred. This raises serious questions about why Lil Rod waited to come forward with such explosive claims. The timing of this lawsuit, years after some of the alleged incidents, suggests there's more to this story than just the shocking accusations themselves.
The biggest privilege he has is a cellmate.
Do we know who this cellmate is?
Yes. The cellmate is a man named Sam Bankman-Fried. He's in federal prison for stealing billions of dollars via his cryptocurrency company called FTX. While they bunk together, they are both separated from Gen Pop.
But then there was another juror that came on the stand, or potential juror, and this juror disclosed the information that they actually work at MDC Brooklyn. Now, the issue with that is Diddy is currently locked up at MDC Brooklyn. He's been housed there since September.
So he could have got paid off. He could have got promised something, anything.
He got
Exactly.
inside their conversations.
Exactly. So the issue with that, the obvious issue with that is what you guys just said. But the bigger problem that the judge had, and he took a minute to scold both sides, the prosecutors and Diddy's team, because he's like, y'all got to do better.
How to get this far?
Yeah, how did he get to the point where he's coming in front of the court and this is being put on record?
Honestly, they are making him suffer.
Poor guy's gonna have to shower by himself.
In terms of clothing, he's allowed one tracksuit and one pair of sneakers. So I'm assuming he switches off between his jail suit and his own personal tracksuit.
Okay, I mean, I get it.
He's not allowed any access to TV or radio, but he is allowed to have a copy of the Bible and one book per week.
Oh, okay. This might be good for him.
Yeah, he needs the Bible. He has access to 300 minutes of phone time per week. That translates to an equivalent of 5 hours per week. I feel like that's a lot of phone time.
Wait, that's a good amount.
Yeah, I mean, he has a lot of kids, so maybe they factored that in so he could have adequate time speaking to each child. But he's allowed one visitor each day at a specific time, and visits can only last 1 hour. But there's a specific dress code for visitors. No sunglasses or open-toed shoes, no ripped jeans. Also, if a visitor goes to the bathroom in the middle of their meeting, the visit's over. It's done.
Oh, they can't leave after that.
Yeah. So no funny visits going on.
Yikes. Use the potty before you meet P. Diddy.
No pun intended. Children under the age of 4 must remain on a visitor's lap at all times.
After years of silence, what finally pushed Lil Rod to risk everything and speak out against one of music's most powerful figures? The timeline shows Lil Rod worked closely with Diddy from early 2022 through late 2023, spending countless hours in studios, at parties, and on private trips. During those months, the alleged incidents weren't just one-time occurrences. They supposedly happened repeatedly, escalating in severity as time went on. The music industry operates on an unwritten code that everyone understands. Cross the wrong person, and your career vanishes overnight. Diddy isn't just any executive. He's a gatekeeper with connections to every major label, streaming platform, and radio station in America. Sources close to Lil Rod say he watched what happened to other people who fell out of Diddy's favor. Their music suddenly couldn't get played, their calls stopped getting returned, they became industry ghosts overnight. When Lil Rod tried creating distance between himself and Diddy after the alleged incidents, his professional life started crumbling. Projects that were guaranteed suddenly fell through. Collaborations mysteriously got canceled. Studio time became unavailable. The message was clear: staying in Diddy's orbit was mandatory for survival in the industry. The first time Lil Rod privately told a friend he might speak out, he claimed strange things started happening. His home security system triggered multiple false alarms. His social media accounts experienced suspicious login attempts. Then came the text messages from unknown numbers, vague warnings about making smart choices and remembering who made you. A car allegedly followed him for several miles one night after leaving a studio session. The intimidation tactics worked. He stayed silent for months longer. What changed everything was connecting with other alleged victims. According to people familiar with the situation, Lil Rod received a call from someone else who had worked closely with Diddy. This person described experiences nearly identical to his own. Then another person reached out, and another. Suddenly, Lil Rod realized he wasn't alone. There was a pattern, and he was just one piece of it. The final straw came after a music industry event where Lil Rod claims Diddy approached him, acting as if nothing had ever happened. Diddy allegedly pulled him aside, talked about future projects, and even suggested they take another private trip together. That night, Lil Rod contacted an attorney. He couldn't keep pretending. The weight of carrying these secrets had become unbearable. Building the lawsuit wasn't quick or easy. Lil Rod assembled a support system of trusted friends, family members who had no connection to the music industry, and mental health professionals who helped him prepare for the emotional toll of going public. His legal team spent months gathering evidence, interviewing potential witnesses, and preparing for the inevitable backlash. Why did Lil Rod wait until now? He claims the fear was paralyzing, fear of career destruction, physical threats, and industry blacklisting. The music business isn't just Diddy's playground, it's his kingdom. Speaking out meant potentially losing everything he'd worked for, but connecting with other alleged victims finally gave him the strength to step forward, regardless of the consequences. Diddy's team hasn't remained silent. They've launched an aggressive counterattack against these serious allegations, setting the stage for a brutal legal battle that could expose the darkest corners of the music industry. Diddy's legal team didn't waste any time hitting back. Within hours of the lawsuit becoming public, their statement hit every news outlet in America. These allegations are pure fiction from a disgruntled former employee seeking a payday. Their defense strategy seems clear. Paint Lil Rod as a money-hungry opportunist, making up wild stories for a quick settlement. The statement from Diddy's attorneys went further, calling the lawsuit a transparent attempt to leverage false accusations for financial gain. They pointed to Lil Rod's continued professional relationship with Diddy throughout the time period when the alleged incidents occurred. If these events were actually happening, why did Mr. Jones continue working with our client for over a year? Why did he actively seek to extend their professional relationship? But Lil Rod claims he has much more than just his word to back up these serious allegations. According to his legal team, he methodically collected evidence throughout his time working with Diddy, almost as if he knew he might need proof someday. The most explosive claim? That he possesses actual video recordings showing inappropriate behavior at several of Diddy's gatherings. These videos allegedly show not just Diddy, but other high-profile industry figures engaging in behavior that matches the lawsuit's descriptions. Beyond the videos, Lil Rod claims to have preserved hundreds of text messages exchanged with Diddy and his associates. These messages allegedly include explicit threats, inappropriate sexual comments, and discussions about the freak-off parties described in the lawsuit. His attorneys say these messages establish a clear timeline of escalating behavior that matches exactly with Lil Rod's testimony. There's also the matter of emails and calendar invitations that supposedly document meetings that turned into something very different than professional gatherings. These digital breadcrumbs might prove crucial in establishing the pattern of behavior Lil Rod alleges in his lawsuit. Perhaps most damaging to Diddy's defense are the 5 additional witnesses Lil Rod's team claims are prepared to testify. These individuals, whose identities remain confidential for now, allegedly experienced or witnessed similar behavior from Diddy. Having multiple victims tell consistent stories would significantly strengthen Lil Rod's case. Diddy's team isn't just attacking the allegations, they're attacking Lil Rod himself. They filed counter motions questioning his credibility, pointing to previous financial disputes with other music industry figures. They've released old social media posts showing Lil Rod praising Diddy publicly, and they've suggested his career failures are motivating these false claims. Both sides face significant legal hurdles. For Lil Rod, proving sexual assault allegations years after the fact presents obvious challenges. For Diddy, the specificity of the claims and the potential evidence makes a simple dismissal unlikely. The case will likely hinge on the credibility of the evidence Lil Rod claims to possess. If the videos, texts, emails, and witness testimonies are as damning as Lil Rod's team suggests, Diddy could face consequences far beyond this lawsuit. Criminal charges could follow. Other victims might come forward. The empire he built over decades could crumble in months. As one industry insider put it, if even half of what Lil Rod claims to have evidence of is real, Diddy isn't just facing a lawsuit. He's facing the complete destruction of his legacy, his business, and possibly his freedom. This isn't just about Diddy and Lil Rod anymore. The entire music industry is now holding its breath. What started as one lawsuit has cracked open a door that many powerful people desperately wanted to keep shut. Industry insiders are whispering that Lil Rod's allegations could expose a much wider network of abuse that's been operating in plain sight for decades. The nervous energy in music executive offices is almost visible. Phone calls aren't being returned. Private jets are suddenly heading to remote locations. PR teams are working overtime preparing statements for clients who haven't even been named yet. Why? Because Lil Rod's lawsuit doesn't just point the finger at Diddy. It suggests numerous other celebrities and executives were present at these alleged freak-offs and other events where misconduct supposedly occurred. The lawsuit specifically mentions high-profile entertainment industry figures who allegedly participated in or witnessed inappropriate behavior. While many names remain under seal in court documents, music industry lawyers are reportedly working around the clock to keep their clients' identities hidden. The fear isn't just about public embarrassment, it's about potential criminal exposure if Lil Rod's claims prove true. Diddy's business empire stands on incredibly shaky ground. Bad Boy Records, once a powerhouse label that launched careers of artists like the Notorious B.I.G. and Faith Evans, has seen its value plummet since the allegations surfaced. The Sean John clothing line, which was once worth hundreds of millions, is facing retailer cancellations. His alcohol partnerships with Ciroc and De Leon Tequila are reportedly being reevaluated by parent company Diageo. His entire business portfolio, built over 30 years, could collapse within months. The impact is already visible. Multiple radio stations across the country have quietly removed Diddy's music from rotation. Streaming platforms haven't publicly banned him, but industry sources say his songs have been removed from numerous playlists. Brands that once clamored to work with him have deleted social media posts featuring his image. The entertainment industry is erasing him before the case even goes to trial. Perhaps most concerning for industry executives is the potential domino effect. Lil Rod's lawsuit could inspire dozens of other victims to come forward with similar allegations against other powerful figures. The music industry has long operated with unwritten rules that protected the powerful. Those rules are now being questioned for the first time. This case highlights the extreme power imbalance that allows misconduct to flourish. When one person controls access to careers, fame, and fortune, saying no becomes nearly impossible for those trying to succeed. This same dynamic has enabled abuse across the entertainment industry for generations. If these allegations are proven, the destruction of Diddy's empire will be complete. Beyond potential criminal charges, his business partnerships worth billions could evaporate overnight. His music catalog, usually an artist's most valuable asset, could become toxic and unsellable. His philanthropic foundation would likely shut down. His entire public image as a music visionary and businessman would be permanently replaced by something much darker. As this lawsuit moves forward, many believe it represents just the beginning of a much larger industry reckoning. The question isn't just whether Diddy will face consequences, but how many other powerful figures might fall with him. The music industry's darkest secrets may finally be coming to light, whether they're ready for it or not. As this case continues to unfold, one thing is clear. The music industry may never be the same. The power dynamics that kept victims silent for decades are finally being questioned. The walls protecting the powerful are starting to crack. Diddy's fate now hangs in the balance, but he might not fall alone. The whispers behind closed doors suggest many others are terrified their names might surface next. For Lil Rod, speaking out came at an enormous cost. His career, his safety, his mental health, all placed at risk. But his testimony, delivered through tears in that silent courtroom, may have finally exposed one of the industry's darkest, most protected secrets.